VIP.
There's so many people in there. So why is there so many people in there?
Oh, shit. Shooting us, Redmond. Shoot.
Good
Rock Miss Cole.
Good evening. How's everybody? Did you all have this meeting just for me or what?
Just pick a seat. It'll be so packed.
Oh my God, is there an agenda?
Yes. Yeah, mine.
Oh, I'll take you.
Are we prepared to get started?
So I just text message Trustee Jones, and he's waiting for a call, and then Trustee Bedford was trying to pass a problem, so he said give me 10 minutes.
We're not gonna hold the meeting up, are we?
Okay, I guess we can get, are you gonna do public comment? Hey, Trustee Jones, just we're about to get started. You want me to call over in my phone? Yeah, you call us together. Okay. We are.
How are you, Trustee? I have you on speakerphone. We are going to start the meeting, and you are going to be on speakerphone. Okay, we're here. We'll have you on speakerphone in the meanwhile.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. Please call the roll.
Trustee Williams,
Here.
Trustee Sanchez,
Here.
Trustee Jones,
Here.
Trustee Lightfoot,
Here.
Trustee Peppers,
Here.
Trustee Brandon,
Here.
Mayor Booker,
Here.
Quorum present.
All right, invocation, I'm just gonna say, God bless everyone, and God bless this meeting. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, public comments.
No public comment.
No public comment. We have none. All right, so just to give you guys a quick understanding of why we had to have a special meeting.
Can you speak up?
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Can you hear Melvin?
All right, so to give you guys an update on why we had to have a special meeting. So since our last board meeting, I've received over 2,500 signatures and asked to consolidate the Maywood Park District. As you all know, as we've all discussed, the Maywood Park District cannot be dissolved by this board. It would actually have to be a resident vote. To get a question on the referendum that's an advisory referendum question for the November 5th election, we have until this week to vote on it. So, I mean, as a board, we can vote on putting the referendum question on the ballot as a non-binding advisory question. And then if there is enough interest in actually truly consolidating the Maywood Park District, that would help us put together a conversation as to how to move forward into the next fiscal year. So the goal of this meeting, really quickly, is to get questions on the ballot, have the residents vote on them in November, and then that will shape how we do the budget for April 2024. I mean, for April 2025, that would start May 1st of 2025 and moving forward. But instead of us going back and forth with different ideas, it's really just to get the questions answered, and then that will help shift the direction of where we go.
I have a question.
Trustee Brand.
This question is for legal. At our last meeting, during the retreat, the board was very clear in the instructions that it gave Wynkoop and Jenkins, as well as staff. I know the manager, when I spoke to him earlier, he stated that he wasn't unaware of what that request was. So the request was, if my memory serves me well, it was to for the attorney to have a letter drafted up, sent over to the Park District to identify or check their pulse as it relates to that interest of moving forward with the agreement that we had on the table as it relates to turning over the parks over to the Park District. And so what I was looking for is a response as it relates to what their response was, one in writing from the Park District. And I hadn't received that. I asked the manager earlier, was he aware of any responses that were given from the Park District? And basically the answer was no, that he did not receive a response. So that's my first question. So can you answer that? Did Wynkoop and Jenkins send a letter over to the Park District requesting what this board has asked? And did you receive a response?
No, well, to be clear.
No, I want to hear from one person who I asked the question from. Please let the attorney respond at this time. The only person I want to hear from is the attorney.
I understand you.
That's what I asked you the
So,
question.
trustee, here's the reality. The attorney has to be acknowledged by me.
Okay, please acknowledge it so you
To
can
give
respond.
you a quick, easy response.
I'm not asking you. I'm
You
asking
said
the
unless
attorney.
you're forgetting, unless you're saying it wrong. You're saying it wrong.
I want to
was
know
not what was
well, let him speak. Let him speak. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying how I say it.
Asking the attorney that wasn't present
Do-
to answer your wrongly asked question.
So here we
So
go
again,
So I just asked it.
Well,
Are you let's get aware?
I'm going to give you clarity of what was
I'm
actually the
asking
direction.
I'm asking the attorney.
Trustee, I'm trying to give you the
Well,
direction.
do you have a response from the Park District?
So,
In writing.
trustee, that was not what we asked for.
What did we ask for, sir?
What was asked for was 3 different ways or different ways to ask the Park District because we couldn't agree on the language of how we wanted to ask the questions of the Park District. So the reality of the question that was supposed to come back, it was supposed to come back to the board to agree on the actual question and how it should be worded to the Park District. That is what we talked about, and that was the directive that we gave. But again, that was before new things have come to light.
So okay. And this is why it's important to have the right people at the table. So that did not happen either because we don't have that in front of us either this evening to either review or to take a look at. And so basically,
Able to answer the question.
Yeah.
Now that the mayor has spoken.
I'm sorry.
Attorney,
Able to answer the
attorney,
question.
Go ahead.
Specific question. The question, I spoke with Mike Jerusik, who was the attorney who was present in the meeting. What he indicated was that there was a letter that he needed to draft in a question form directed to the Park District that was supposed to be back at the September meeting for the board to consider and then agree on how it would be posed. And so that is the response that I have for you, that it is still coming up at the September meeting. But that is, essentially somewhat different from today because of the deadlines to the issues that you have to have for the questions to make it to the referendum.
Okay, again, so from what I'm hearing is money being spent on duplicated work. So if I want to go back a little bit actually. I want to go back to, so who directed these things to go on this agenda and who called today's meeting?
So after speaking with the attorneys about the options of what to do with what was provided to me, this was the option. either you're going to do an advisory binding referendum that will answer the question, and then you can move forward with, based on what the residents are asking for, because again, ultimately the residents have to vote on this. The board cannot decide that. So based on that information, that's how the meeting was called.
Okay, so, and we need to have a special board meeting because we
To
don't,
meet the
I don't know who timeline we on.
Well, it's on the county, it's on the county's deadline of when you can actually have a question asked on the November 5th election. So this week is the deadline for a municipality to be able to say, we are asking for this to be placed on the November 5th election.
So,
We can't do it next week or the week after. This week is the deadline.
So Jerusalem stated at the last meeting that it had to be citizen-led. So why wasn't the citizen-led, these petitions turned into the county or whomever is responsible for collecting the signatures or petitions to have the citizens to put it on the agenda? So why isn't the village, which we had a conversation about this during that retreat, that, I believe it was Trustee Jones that brought up, or who asked the question to Jerusalem, could the village put forth could the village put forth what we call it, a referendum on the ballot ourselves? And Attorney Jerusalem stated at that meeting at the time that it had to be citizens-led. So under my impression,
Correct.
the citizens were supposed to collect a required amount of signatures, whatever that number is, and then move forward to have those signatures not turned into you, but turned into whatever, the county to have it put on the referendum. So I'm just trying to figure out, how did the village get behind this will? We haven't even seen, these petitions that you're speaking of, and now we are up on this clock. And I guess, and let me just explain a little bit of my frustration, is because I found out about today's meeting today. And so when we're doing things in proper order as official governing officer of this community, it's probably important, and this is really for Frank, because I don't know who got it wrong, but it's probably important that we get proper notice when a meeting is called. If this meeting was called last week or put together last week, and I'm just finding out about it today, that is a disservice for me and the people that elected me to be here to be fully engaged in today's conversation. And so, for me, I'm a little frustrated that I found out about today's meeting today, and so I have to change my plans to make sure that I'm here and able to be a part of today's conversation. And so, that's where the frustration is coming from. But again, just going back to my original conversation, I thought this whole process was being led by citizens. We were told during that retreat time frame that citizens were leading this, and the village wasn't involved in it, and that the village couldn't do it. Now we're here today with this referendum question, that's a non-binding referendum, in front of us to pursue and to have put on the agenda. So I'm just trying to figure out, how did we arrive here? Why would the citizens turn in petitions to you and not turn them in to the county or whomever else they were supposed to turn them in to have this item put on the ballot themselves? And why is the village behind this?
Maywood.
Trustee Wood.
So I do want to ask the attorney this. So the citizen-led action would have been a binding referendum that was placed on the ballot, which had a deadline to be put on the ballot, right?
Well, my understanding of it was simply that it was the option at this juncture was to make sure that the questions were being included for an advisory referendum, and that initiated this resolution.
I'm not talking about this right here. This is a non-binding referendum. These are advisory questions. So this doesn't have to go through a petition process to be placed on the board. This doesn't have to be a citizen-led.
These are initiated by the board, by the village, saying, here's this questions, we're going to put these on the ballot, kind of thing. And so you can do that with your action. In order to do that, obviously, and as outlined in the memorandum from August 9th, and the information you received, there are certain deadlines that you have to adhere to in order to be able to do that. So that is why these are for you today.
So I guess I need to understand that these are advisory questions.
Yes.
That's just being placed out to the residents for them to answer, for us to see how we should move forward.
Correct.
Yes.
That doesn't hinder anything that we're doing with the park district or that we want to do with the park district right now. Even if this advisory question comes back to say, no, we don't want any of this to happen.
Right.
We're still moving forward. We're trying to work with the park district.
Right, and
As we
hence,
plan.
hence the question that
Okay.
the letter that the attorney's office has been instructed to prepare for the boards to consider and to address the question specifically as to how you all have to agree on that. And so that's the question that will come back with Mike on September 9th
Okay.
for that meeting. And so that process is still going. So you're looking at you're looking at a couple of approaches, right? You're still doing those letters. There's still signatures that are going to be collected in this advisory process. In order to get it on for the ballot, you had to go by the ordinance imposed by the county.
Yeah,
Mayor,
board does
Sanchez.
For the record, can you define so that everyone knows what non-binding advisory means and what is the difference?
So the non-binding referendum is a question that we would have to get answered from the residents of if this is the direction that they would like to see us go in. The binding referendum is acknowledging that this is the will of the residents that are saying this is the direction that you are required to go in. So this is more so of a, can you answer these questions so that we can map out the future? The other one will be, we voted on a binding referendum, this is the future.
So Mayor, one
Trustee,
more.
Williams.
So November 5th is election day. The residents of the village of Maywood say we would like to see this, that, and the third on whatever, however they vote on these questions. November 6th, the village isn't going to take over the park districts. That's
No.
not something that could happen.
No, well, from that standpoint, all we would be doing at that point is from a budgetary standpoint for next year, mapping out what it would look like for the village to fully take over that control of the full park and recreation entities throughout the village of Maywood. So right now, we already own 7 of the 11 parks, and we already own some of our recreation facilities, and they own some. So realistically, we'll map out a budget, and then we would spend the time having conversations with the residents of, if this is the direction that we're going in, this is what this is gonna look like. So it's really just the conversation of mapping out budgetary and mapping out from an operations standpoint what this would look like if this is the direction that we go.
Mayor,
Yes, Trustee Sanchez.
so when do you, if we're forecasting the what ifs, forecasting to bind everything would be far in the future, 2025,
The binding referendum will
26.
become April, so in the April 2025 election, the binding referendum will go into place. If the binding referendum passes, then at that point, we would have 12 to 24 months to get all of the transfer and the pieces done.
And if it doesn't pass, if the binding resolution does not pass on the 2025 election, April 2025 election, then the park district still remains the same.
The park district will still remain the same, and at that point, it would be for us in that April. So say for instance, we would approve like option A, option B, option C of the budget, right? Option A would be the budget of if the village of Maywood goes fully functional and the consolidation is completed. Option B would go if the consolidation of the park district does not go through, but the village still maintains the control and ownership of our 7 parks and of our facilities, what that would look like from a budgetary and operational standpoint. And then option C, if it's the will of the board to continue the thought process, what it would look like to transfer everything over to the park district. So from that standpoint, we would have from November to April to convey and have an understanding of these are what the options are within the budget season based on what would happen in the April 2025 election. At that point, at the next board meeting, we would then vote on which budget to approve for the fiscal year.
Can we call the questions, please? Can we call the questions yet?
Okay, so we would,
And I have a
I like to
follow-up
speak.
as well.
yeah, Trustee Duckers.
I have a question for Carlos. So, sir, as you know, I have a police background. You know, and whenever my police instincts go off, I always listen to them. So my question is to you, and as we get here and so elegantly, Trustee Brandon puts it, in this rush situation where it wasn't organized, that it didn't go through the board, there was no communication, but we're here. I would like, because I'm looking at all the players and groundworks and the undertable stuff, whatever it may be, I would like to find out the procedure here at the Village of Maywood in reference to us doing a forensic file, IP investigation of all emails, all financials, everything in reference to the Park District, the village, and anyone that had anything to do with it. So I need to know what the procedure you have in reference to that, sir.
Well, like any type of investigation like that, certainly from our perspective, the first question would be to have direction from the board as to what that's going to entail. You as a board would have to come into terms and agreement as to what the scope of any such thing is going to be. We would then have to determine, along with the board, what is the process, right? What is it? Who does it entail? What kind of expertise might be necessary to have engaged in that situation? So if you're talking about finances, then I'm going to need to have something like that. We're going to have to, is it just primarily a legal question? Is it primarily an IT issue? So those are issues that have to be identified specifically by the board in order to get direction as to what to do going forward, if that was the will of the board, if you will. And in that regard, then obviously from that point in time, then you go through the process as defined by the board, the direction of the board.
Okay.
I think that's how generally it would look.
Right.
The abstract question you're asking, certainly without the discussion and further definition, is kind of difficult to say this is how we're going to do it. Certainly, we'd have to define the scope, and then we go forward.
I would like to communicate to the board as a 25-year retired police officer, former SWAT team member. I've been in the Dirksen building a couple of times. It's a slippery slope. I mean, I get it, but do not be on that slippery slope to try and do whatever it is you might try and do. Because eyes and forensic investigations of all computers and IP addresses is nothing to play with. So I just want to say that to you guys in the public statement. So behoove and remember who you are. You are elected officials, and we are here working for the people. So just remember that as we go forward.
I have a question.
Trustee Brandon.
So yeah, and I did not hear anything, but Carlos, don't you think it would have been important for the board? And I heard Booker mention about the 2,500 signatures. So why would someone turn in petitions or signatures to an elected official versus turn it into the county or whomever is required to receive these petitions? And I would think it would be also helpful that this board, have received copies of, or at least an email on what was sent or what was turned in as well, so that we can all be on the same page. Because right now we're not all on the same page. We haven't seen the petitions. I've heard about it throughout the community that people were getting signatures, and from what I've heard, just to be honest, that the people were organized by Mayor Booker. And so that is where my concern would come from, of who is leading this whole ordeal, where are the petitions at, why isn't the people, or didn't the people turn in those petitions to whatever respective office, if it's the county or if it's our office, but what would make somebody do that if there was petitions out? Why would they give them to a elected official?
I can certainly answer that for you.
No, that was for the attorney.
I do not know what process has already taken place.
Well, what is the process? What is the process of something that's been led by residents? Can you explain what the process is?
Well, the point of there's different processes, that different approaches. One is the approach that's in front of you, which is the advisory question.
Yeah.
Do you also have a different process, different route, if you will, of signatures that is citizen-led, which is the discussion we had previously. And in that respect, that is something that could be organized by individuals in their capacity as individuals.
Correct.
And certainly you put it together, you go forward. There's got to be a distinction made in the sense that, with any kind of questions, there's always the issue of you are providing factual information. So if they came to the village, if the citizens came to the village and wanted to find out what are the costs or what's the budget that is going to be needed to run the parks, or what is the current amount, what do we anticipate is going to be the future. And certainly the village is in a position to provide that information based on its process of budget evaluation, what the facilities are, what the needs are, all of those things. That is factual information that the village can certainly provide, and that the board obviously can direct staff to go and provide to the citizens that are putting this together. So you can work with the citizens. It is a factual kind of process. We need to be careful not to essentially, direct things or spend tax money on what the questions are, or what the processes are for the advisory questions or the binding questions. That's going to be citizen-led. So the signature collection that's taking place can certainly be all over the village. All of the citizens that are involved in collecting those signatures, they have to, as you know the signature process, right? As you run for office, you have to get the signatures from people. You have to have somebody who's collecting those and putting together those affidavits and declarations that yes, these people sign, and all of that kind of information. All of that is part of that process, and that can be.
And who should have been turned into? Who should the petitions have been turned into?
At some point in time, you have to go to the clerk with that.
The county clerk or
Yes.
the village clerk?
Yes.
So the
Well,
petitions,
the village clerk would put it, because obviously it's going to be part of the process of the election process.
so those petitions should have been turned into Clerk Garrett's office if they were going to submit it for it to be on the ballot on November the 5th. Is that correct?
Meaning that you would have to do that, yes.
Okay, so I have a question for the clerk. So Clerk Garrett, has any petitions been turned into your office for the November 5th election pertaining to the consolidation of the Maywood Park District?
There were residents that did come to the office with petitions.
Okay, so at this time, what I would like to request is publicly a copy of those petitions from your office and the language that came along with it, because and this is what's coming to mind, because there's several referendum questions on this ballot. So if the citizens submitted one, now the village is submitting multiple referendum questions. Now my mindset is going to a space of, are we trying to overload the ballot with questions? Because I know, Attorney, how many referendum questions can go on the ballot at one time?
Well, village initiative, you can have no more than 3.
No
However,
more.
please note that I think that the signatures that we're talking about, those are the ones that would go in the April election, because first you have to get the feel for what the people, have an interest. If the advisory questions that you have in front of you see support, then at that point in time, you can drive the citizens, and everyone can collect the signatures for the actual binding referendum question at the April election. So this is kind of like, let's get a feel for what the citizens of the village want. That process certainly can be started, or at least, the discussions can be had, depending on the timing, because of course, any kind of question you're gonna put in, any kind of signature collection, you have to go within that specific period when you turn it in, and all those kinds of things. So it's slightly
So you
different.
heard, so you didn't hear what the clerk stated in regards to that petitions. What the clerk just stated, that petitions were, and do you have a date on when they were submitted, Clerk Guerin?
People came in at different times. I did not collect all at one time. The first time that I collected, that's something that I actually took from a young lady, was just a few days ago. I don't recall exactly.
So petitions for this one referendum question that the citizens were leading, they were coming in sporadically. You would say that they were
Well,
coming
I
in.
hadn't been there, so I had only encountered, I'm not for sure if deputy clerks encountered anyone, but I had only been there in the office because I had been ill a few times. So the few times that I was there, I did experience, actually I experienced someone walking out the building, and then a few days ago when I was in the building.
So it sounded like it was sporadic when they were submitting
Correct.
those petitions.
But I did get a lot of questions about it, like just out and about, people asking and inquiring about the petition. That's how I actually.
So Carlos, so as the clerk just mentioned, so residents submitted petitions for a referendum to go on the ballot for the November 5th election. So how would that conflict or coincide with what the village is doing? And I haven't even seen the language on the petitions because I haven't seen the petitions at all. And so how would that coincide with what the village is attempting to do this evening? And you're saying that that petition was for, the petition that they submitted was for the April 2025 election? I don't know what the language is on it. So if that's the case, how does that
I don't
coincide?
I don't know what the language of those petitions are. I don't know if it's a process where people have collected the signatures, not necessarily knowing what the process is or all that it will entail, whether it's a binding, whether it's non-binding. I don't know that for a fact. I haven't seen any of those signatures. So again, that is not a question that probably is going to make it to the November 5th election because it hasn't been clarified. It probably won't make the deadlines.
And that's right.
It won't make a difference.
Right,
And so-
in order for the process
I see.
to be initiated,
That-
that's why you're doing
No,
these.
so that answers my question. That answers my question, and I received the clarity that I need. So what we're doing this evening is, for clarity, and from what I've gathered from this brief conversation, is there were some petitions that were gathered by citizens, and I'm hearing folks that they were paid to collect these signatures by the mayor. It appears that they did not have their things together or their paperwork together or in order or what have you. And so that was identified, it looked like. And now it seems to be that since they didn't have their paperwork together or organized or the language organized, we took a look at it, or somebody took a look at it and say, hey, this is not organized, this is not going to make it on the ballot, so the village needs to get behind this. We need to have a special meeting so that the village could make sure that this is on the ballot, because we couldn't do it this way. Since we couldn't do it this way, we're going to do it this way to get it done. And so that provides me with a whole lot of clarity on what's in I assumed it, but based on the preponderance of evidence, it just confirms to me what is happening. So again, we're behind this thing, and we're throwing a rock and hiding our hand of what we really want to do. This is really being led by the mayor, who wants to have this done, and I just don't believe that it should be done. I think we were very clear in 2006, 2007, which direction the village wanted to go into as it relates to recreation, and it's not about dissolving the park district. It just appears to me that there needs to be stronger leadership on that board and helping to lead that organization. And so for me, as I continue to evaluate this whole ordeal, it's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. Because this board did not have any collective conversation other than the one that's happening this evening on doing this. As a matter of fact, we was advised by Attorney Jerusik to, it's a citizen-led situation, and he was very clear when he spoke to Trustee Jones in regard, because Trustee Jones asked the questions, and Attorney Jerusik was very clear saying, no, it has to be led by the citizens. It has to be led by the citizens. And now I'm confused because I'm here at a meeting on a Monday at 6 o'clock in the evening talking about it's an emergency or it's a special meeting, because it appears that this initiative that's been led by the mayor, they couldn't get it right. Now the mayor is leading the charge to put it on the ballot for the upcoming election at tonight's board meeting. And so I understand the full situation. It's really unfortunate, and I believe that it's both political, it's petty, and it's getting personal to me at this time. And so I am not in support of it. I am in support of if citizens are leading it, let them lead it, but not this village board getting behind a message that we want to consolidate or we're thinking about consolidating. No, we were very clear. Let's let people do their jobs. Let's let the residents of Maywood hold folks accountable for doing a job or not doing a job, and let's go forward in that manner, but not us because our political situations. Oh, we're gonna put on the agenda anyway. They didn't get it right. We'll get it right on this end. And now when we hear this evening, doing something that we should not even be doing, or having a conversation about something that we should not be having a conversation about. That was from the attorney, Jerusalem. And so I'm just trying to figure out from the board, and I'm happy to hear that my colleagues are part of the conversation this evening, but, to me, it's just a waste of time for us to even be here this evening, talking about this, and we're going to stack the ballot up with all of these questions, so even if somebody had something or was putting something on the ballot, it's going to be stacked, because you only can have so many questions on the agenda, on the ballot at one particular time. So that's what is happening, and it's very clear to me what's happening. It's unfortunate.
Right, so just one moment. So, one, you cannot say things that you don't know to be true as if it's a fact.
No,
trustee, I'll let you
Go
speak.
ahead.
I haven't paid anybody for a signature.
Okay.
I have not paid anybody to do the petition. Yes, I have the petitions. Yes, I've seen the petitions. My signature isn't even on the petitions. I didn't even sign the petition. For me, again, you're asking how did we get here? So to get to how we got here, this conversation of the Maywood Park District has been an issue for over a year now. So there's been multiple different resident conversations and community conversations to me as the mayor about the Maywood Park District. So when you have different residents asking, well, what are our options? Then my job as mayor is to provide the options. So my thing was, I'm not going to get involved with it unless there's enough community support to get behind it. And the thought process of having enough community support, thought process to get behind it, again, as you so eloquently say, Attorney Jerusalem says, it has to be a community-led initiative to get on the ballot and to actually have it as a binding referendum. So if I'm getting more signatures than I even got turned in as to run for mayor, if I'm getting more signatures than any mayoral candidate has gotten in the village of Maywood in over 40 years to do something, I'm going to take those, understand, okay, this is a bigger picture, got it. Been known it was a big picture. And happy to know that other residents see it as a big picture as well. Because while you're sitting here talking about a 2007 referendum, again, if you go back to the code, that would have had to have been something that they did within 12 to 24 months after that referendum. We are talking about something that happened 18 years ago. Today, we have a Maywood Park District that has not turned in an audit in 5 years. You have a park district that does not have a budget. You have a park district in the last 12 months that has had checks bounced, has not paid health insurance, has had a building that is in danger of an unsafe roof, bricks pulling away from the building, home air conditioning units in the windows versus an actual commercial AC unit system working. They just approved $27,000 of electrical work because parts of their building didn't even have electricity because the water coming from the roof has gotten into the walls, and now people are talking about mold in the building. So they're going to have to do mold removal too. Trustee, at this point, you've gotten a 40-page report of everything that's wrong with just one of their facilities. So leaving it with that thought process, at the end of the day, because this does have to be a resident-led initiative, I got something to say to the residents. If you all get enough signatures, then we'll look to what we can do. Okay, got more signatures than any mayoral candidate has gotten in over 40 years.
Mayor, how many signatures?
2,500.
Yeah, have you seen them?
So-
chance?
I have not seen.
Okay.
I haven't seen.
So here's the
Nobody
reality.
haven't seen it.
It's a binding. That's a binding referendum signature, right? So we don't need to have the signatures as a board. Realistically,
We should put it.
trustee. You talk. I
Okay.
say it,
Okay.
right? So when I say when we're looking at question 6A, a resolution providing for requiring the submission of a non-binding advisory question concerning an increase by the Illinois General Assembly in the home property exemption to appear on the ballot of electors of the then village of Maywood at the general election to be held on November 5th, 2024. This too is conversations about how high our property taxes have gone. So this conversation of asking this question, talking about property tax exemption, goes to residents that are saying, my house went up $2,500. My house went up $4,800. My house went up $5,200. So literally, this is a question of residents, you're asking for what we can do. A homeowner exemption, tax exemption increase would have to appear to the Illinois General Assembly. Would you like the Village of Maywood to extend resources to get that done? That's a yes or no. Next question, 6B. A resolution providing for requiring the submission of a non-binding advisory public question concerning village management of park and recreation services to appear on the ballot of electors of the Village of Maywood at the general election to be held November 5th. So that is are you interested in the Village of Maywood taking ownership of the park and recreation, or are you not? When you sit there and you look at, it's two different governing bodies. One governing body is getting over $700,000 in our property taxes every year, yet the Village of Maywood still is operating park and recreations and facilities and management, even after we gave them a 3-year management agreement to see if they can manage it, and they showed every year for 3 years that they could not do it. So that is a fair question to ask, because that is the conversation that we've been dealing with for over a year, over 2 years at this point.
No, you've been dealing with.
Well, exactly. It's the mayor.
Not the board collectively. And that's the problem.
Trustee, to be
that
clear.
The board don't see.
To be real
You've
clear,
been dealing
trustee.
with it by yourself, not
Trustee,
the board.
Trustee, to be clear, I can't speak to what resident conversations you have, but I can certainly speak to the conversation that I have. So, 6C, a resolution providing and requiring the submission of a non-binding advisory public question concerning the use of annual tax levy funds of the Maywood Park District to create a Village of Maywood residential property tax rebate program in the event the Maywood Park District is dissolved into the Village of Maywood to appear on the ballot of electors of the Village of Maywood at the general election. So here's the other reality.
Those questions are
When
it
you
is
look
gonna
at,
fool the residents.
trustee, if you look at the reality of the Village of Maywood throws all of our big community events with Village of Maywood tax dollar funds, and some grants, some sponsorship, but the Park District doesn't. When you look at this, let's look at this whole thing. The Maywood Park District, aside from Wind Down Wednesdays, as community events, the Village of Maywood funded them. Inspire Fest, Maywood Fest, Hispanic Heritage Month, Black History Month events. You look at Caribbean Heritage Month. Those things in a regular world would probably be a part of the park and recreation budget, not a village budget, right? So when you look at those types of things that we tried to do for the 3-year period in partnership with the Park District, Village Pride, Village Wide, Wind Down Wednesday, we did all of this stuff in partnership, but we were the ones paying for the building, for the expenses. When you look at, trustee, when you look at the 200 building, we did a management agreement with them for a couple of years. It didn't work out. The management agreement said that the Park District was supposed to be paying for the utilities and the maintenance. They didn't. We did. We kept paying it.
And this board needed a conversation.
So this
That's
is
the
the
problem.
trustee.
Mayor, can we let Trustee Jones speak before we call the
It's
question, please?
really just asking questions. None of this is binding, because the conversation is, what direction do we really go in as we prepare for the budget? Regardless of whatever politics you want to talk about, we still have to do a 25-26 budget. So in doing the 25-26 budget, let's ask these questions, because at least these 3 pieces can have some direction as we're discussing a budget. Trustee Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I don't have a problem with the referendum questions per se. I wish that this would have gotten brought up during our retreat, so we could have developed the questions ourselves. I just want to make a few comments. I do recommend that we have these petitions be public, sent to the board, to the clerk's office, just because, people do
trustee.
Hello.
Some different thoughts, again, just as a reminder. That's why these non-binding advisory questions matter.
They have a
Because
special
ultimately,
meeting.
everything that you just said is gonna come down to budgetary conversation. So, in helping us get to understanding
Yeah.
what the residents would like for us to spend budgetary thought process on, to your point when you say you don't wanna
Right.
take on something in your committee if it's not gonna happen, like, this would be that case scenario where it's like, it's a pretty clear understanding of the direction that they would like to see the budget. But as I said before, we can still have the conversations with the park district. We can still look at option A, B, or C. I think realistically, these types of questions just help us navigate the direction of the budget in more than just a community town hall. The community vote would actually navigate the budget. And that's where the goal of this is to be. If it actually does get to the consolidation conversation, again, that's not until April of next year. These are non-binding questions that would help the conversation of the budget conversation talks from November leading up to April. That's what the goal is.
Question.
Trustee Peppers.
Nice questions for Carlos. What's the criteria in reference to petitions, and what I mean by that? I was approached twice at the old school barbecue for these petitions, and both of the gentlemen that came up to me was like starstruck, like, "Oh my God, no, I can't have you sign this. I gotta keep this away from you." And I'm looking like, "Well, what's going on?" That was the first thing, and then the second thing, what's the age criteria of people getting signatures?
You have to be a voter.
Oh, heck, you know, it was a 16-year-old kid.
Right, and so that's, those are.
So he had a petition, the 16-year-old. And he's one of my players. So I'm just like, what are you doing? And his mom told me about it. So I mean, it's a lot of holes in this thing. This ain't cool.
So trustee, I think that part of it would be for the binding referendum, because that's the conversation that we're having in regards to your question. For the April binding referendum, those signatures would go to the Cook County Clerk's office. Those signatures would be verified, vetted, and everything that you guys are talking about through the Cook County Clerk's office. So it's not like the village of Maywood does that. The Cook County Clerk's office does that.
Well, what I'm saying is, when the young man asked me, one of my players, and questioned, and I said, "Son, what are you doing?" And his mom said, he said he had instructions to do this. And he was instructed by one of our employees. And that ain't right. That is wrong.
I can't speak to the child there. Ultimately, like I said, we're really just looking
I mean, are we
for.
really doing kids like that?
Trustee, if you could find a child that says Mayor Booker asked me to do this.
No, he said exactly.
I'm just saying. So at the end of the day, you want me to say I can't speak to it, but I wasn't a part.
Not directly, but indirectly.
Right. So
He said he had to do it.
ultimately, guys, we're looking.
Kids.
I
I
get
thought we protect kids. This is
ultimately,
unacceptable. Children.
We're not even at that petition. Ultimately, we're looking at a motion for 6A, 6B, and 6C.
No, my thing is,
That's what we're looking at.
my thing is, with that being said, I don't even think it's a discussion. We adding kids to this?
The kids are not a part of what we're voting on, trustee. So there's a motion
This is
by,
embarrassing.
there's a motion by trustee Williams. I need a second.
I'll second that.
Second by trustee Sanchez. Please call the roll.
Any questions?
You have another
Yes,
question? We've been talking.
I do. You got me here on Monday.
Trustee
We're not protecting
Because you
kids.
got me
Trustee
here on
Raymond,
Monday,
you are more
that I should not.
Throwing kids
So
under
I got a
the
question.
bus.
So
I just want to
Well,
go back, trustee, before you get started.
Wait, this is a
Trustee
question.
Pepper, I want to get a
Just call
clear
the question.
understanding. These three questions that we're voting on have nothing to do with kids. With anything else. I understand your narrative and your conversation, or people that have spoken to you, but realistically, what we're voting on has nothing to do with what you're talking
So
about.
basically, we saying we can just use kids for whatever
That is-
our stuff is. They got nothing to do with the kids.
I said what we're voting on,
You said what we voting on.
a child did not get a petition to do
But
this.
what I'm saying
One,
is-
two, nor three. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, you said that. Now can I speak, please? What I'm saying is, it's not 1, 2, or 3. It's the look of village officials, village employees, that we got children out here doing our day job. And that is so wrong. We are protectors of the children from harm's way. and we sit up here as elected officials and throw kids under the bus. I'm talking about a kid with his mom talking to me directly, giving me names. And I'm standing there with my mouth open, eyes bigger than they are, and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't deny. Go ahead. You don't let me talk. Go ahead.
Whose job is it as a day job to collect petitions? You said we're having kids do our day jobs. It's nobody's day job on the Village of Maywood to collect petitions. So that's not, again, I want the narrative to be real
Okay,
clear.
so with that being said, with these petitions that have been signed, 2,500 as we say, I'm sitting up here and I haven't seen any petitions, copies of anything, any signatures, and we here for 1, 2, and 3.
Because these are the questions that we as a board actually
And
vote on.
as elected official, I have not seen any of this.
Trustee Brandon.
Okay, I want to be very clear. So, as it relates to the 2006 referendum, it had nothing to do with the 2021 property management agreement. It had nothing to do with the other. The voters voted in 2006. They were very clear to consolidate recreation throughout the entire village. So I want to be very clear about that. So now we're saying, and I'm going to be very clear on my perspective on the matter, because of, and to this board, who were getting in the conversation late, we should have been involved in the conversation, because only one person on this board has been involved in conversations. And we believe this one person, because at first the person said that the Park District were the experts, said right here in front of this entire board, and everybody followed. Oh, they're the experts. They know what they're doing. It should all be under recreation. And now we find ourselves here because we get involved in the conversation late. And we're unplugged, not engaged, not involved, and just leave it up to one person. And so now we're here talking about reversing something that took place in 2006 that the voters were very much in unison on in regards to consolidating recreation in the Village of Maywood and having the two to operate separately. And so as it relates to how I'm going to be voting on it, it's going to be no. It's going to be no. For the reasons of, I think it's petty, personal, and I think it's political that this is happening. And it's all because of because of a collective board had a conversation with the Park District Board, is because we're allowing one person to lead the conversation, and now we're forced to come to a special board meeting because whomever this the mayor had out there circulating the petitions, they didn't get it right, and so we're here so that the village board can put it on the agenda to meet a deadline. And for me, it's definitely going to be a no. I think that is all personal, all political, and it's unfortunate. We have not had a conversation with the Park District like I've been asking for us as governing bodies. And we talk about unity in the community all the time, but it's a facade and it's fake. It's fake unity that we speak of, because anytime that we have a building shut down and closed down, and we knew about these concerns well beforehand, gives me political. And I said this to Frank, and I said this to village staff as well. This is all political, personal, and petty, and I will be voting no because of the negative energy and the negative vibe that's behind all of this. And so that's why I will be voting no. And I want to make sure I let the residents know what's taking place as well.
I have a question.
Trustee Peppers.
You mentioned earlier about the mold in the building at the Park District. I want to remind everybody here in the Village of Maywood that we have had mold in the police department. At least 15 different floods from 1995 to 2020 that I was part of. It was mold, it was everything you could imagine within those walls, and we put paint over it just to cover it up. So there's no telling what's going on with our lungs, our lives as we go through out here. We had a couple of guys check out from it in the past 10 years. So, they had cancer and things of that nature. We don't know the origin of it. But I do have a question for our village manager, Mr. Torrance. With all these things going on, sir, we have a managerial type of government. So I want to know what was your role in reference to this, sir?
As far as the Park District? As far as the Park District, since I've been here, and like I said before, One of the reasons why Jim hired me is because I had park district experience. I've had park district experience both in Park and Rec as a department, which it was in the Village Alliance when I was the director of Park and Recreation, and also the executive director in a park district. I've reached out and I had a conversation with Trustee Brandon today, explaining to him, ever since I got here, trying to even get the parks built with the former executive director, who threw me out because I was asking questions on funding. Does she have funding? Does she not have funding? We need to figure this out so we can bring it in front of this board here to vote on. She threw me out. Since then, had conversations with the new executive director saying, here, I'm offering to help on my own time, not during work hours, on my own time to help you get this straight. I'll let you know at my 100-day report. There was supposed to be a 100-day report at some meeting that they did not have. He has yet to get that. He has come to see me once or twice because he has not followed proper procedure on getting a liquor license. He asked me, he was given the paperwork by the clerk's office, he was given every opportunity, and I said, please, we have to do this the right way. I've offered help many times. He has yet to bring anything. Do I think that the park district is good? Yeah, I think park districts are great. I also think being a director of a park and rec in the village is also great. What I don't feel is great is a park district that does not have, and its board not doing its fiduciary responsibility to the public. So therefore, we need to have direction, like I said before at the last board meeting, we need to have direction by the residents on where we need to go, and you guys need to be educated on where we need to go. We also need to put a budget together, and I think that's a great idea, putting 3 budgets together, to figure out where the money's spent. Would it be great to give this more money to the park district, the village? That'd be great, that'd be on you guys. But if they don't have any record of where they spent the money, I think you're gonna have to have some questions that you brought up and a slippery slope. So I wouldn't advise you guys to just hand over money to a district that has not filed any reports, has not came up with a budget, has not even wanting to sit down and talk and have help staff or board. It has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with running the day-to-day operations. I had to do it when I was at the Summit Park District, and also as the director in Lions. I have to do it here. I've reached out to the executive director, who has given me nothing. So I can't bring it to the board. I can't honestly say that. And I told Trustee Brendan today, I can't. The lawyers, as far as I talked to Drew Sick today, he is coming up with a letter. But it's going to be the same letter to you guys that we had in October. It's going to be the same letter to you guys that we had 2 years ago. It's going to be the same, do you want to still take over the park? Do you still want to take over our parks? Yes, they do. But they have no way or means to pay for that. The residents suffer. The residents should be able to come to any park or any facility here and be able to be safe, be able to be proud of it, and proud of that in their neighborhoods, local parks. So I am more than willing, open again to meet with the director, but he refuses to meet with me. And I have encouraged him to get his report done and give it out to the public, which he has not done.
So let me ask you this question. With what I said about the forensics files and the IP addresses and everything, is that something we can discuss so we can get that type of investigation going? Because I want to know the ins and outs of everything from the park district to our village and any IP address, because we owe that as elected officials to our citizens. Because I really believe from my police background that there's something going on that we need to find out. And when you do a forensic file investigation, we could ask Mr. Savage, you can't hide.
I agree with you. So I think that the park district, we should do that with the park district, 100%. The problem is the park district has not paid their bills for their computers, so they don't get turned on.
Yeah, but
So
every-
is that a question? So
Right, but
I've
it's in
just,
the cloud.
That
It's
is
in the
not-
cloud.
but my point is,
And all IP addresses and everything that's linked to it, financial, through the village and everything.
Trustee Peppers, I agree with you. I'm simply saying, for us to hand over money, for us to do anything without even getting any reports, or seeing their reports, that's questionable.
Trustee, can you please allow
That's questionable.
Manager Torres?
So I think, again, I have no problem reaching out. I have no problem working with Attorney Jerusik to draw up a letter saying, hey, we're requesting this for our board to review. And we can go from there.
Okay, well, I would personally follow up with you, with this, sir, and we'll contact the people necessary to help us today.
Please call the roll.
That's a great question.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Sanchez?
Aye.
Trustee Jones?
No.
Trustee Lightfoot? Trustee Peppers?
No,
Trustee Brandon?
No.
Mayor Booker?
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, so at this point, that was 6A, resolution providing for requiring the submission of a non-binding advisory public question concerning an increase by the Illinois General Assembly in the home property tax exemption to appear on the ballot of electors of the Village of Maywood at the general election to be held November 5th, 2024. Need a motion and a second for 6B, the resolution.
We did it separately.
Yeah, okay.
Y'all voted
So
against
resolution,
the tax.
so resolution providing for the, I just want that on record. Resolution providing for the required submission of a non-binding advisory public question concerning the Village of Maywood Parks Management Services to appear on the ballot of electors of the Village of Maywood at the general election to be held November 5th, 2024. Need a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Williams. Need a second? Second by Trustee Sanchez. Please call the roll.
And this is B we're doing, right?
B, yes.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Sanchez?
Aye.
Trustee Jones?
No.
Trustee Lightfoot? Trustee Peppers?
no,
Trustee Brandon?
No.
Mayor Booker?
Aye.
Motion carried.
6C, I need a motion, a resolution providing for the requirement of submission of a non-binding advisory public question concerning the use of annual tax funds of the Maywood Park District to create a Village of Maywood residential property tax rebate program in the event that the Maywood Park District is dissolved into the Village of Maywood to appear on the ballot of electors of the Village of Maywood at the general election to be held on November 5th of 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Trustee Williams, second by Trustee Sanchez. Please call the roll.
Trustee Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Sanchez?
Aye.
Trustee Jones?
No.
Trustee Lightfoot? Trustee Peppers?
no,
Trustee Brandon?
No.
Mayor Booker?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I need a motion to, okay, motion to adjourn.
So that was A.
A, B, and C. D is just for information. So I need a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Torres, I follow you.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Sanchez. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Trustee Williams.
Williams?
Aye.
Trustee Sanchez? Trustee Jones? Trustee Lightfoot? Trustee Peppers? Aye.
Because I understood the timing and what y'all was attempting to do.
Trustee Brandon?
Trustee Brandon, we're adjourning.
That's your story, we're gonna
Trustee
take
Brandon?
that.
Aye. To adjourn. And Mayor Booker?
Aye.
Motion carried.
See, when the trustees look at
Thank you very much.
their jobs are, they're gonna probably do a better job. And